first get Mr. Kamath's response on, you did talk about the NaBFID, and I think that's one of the big things that the government has done to address the problem. You said the setup is being done. So when do we see it get operationalized? Is there a timeline? I know you did talk about the number of people you are looking at, etc. So it's work in progress, but the timelines on that, and also the fact that will it be restricted only to infrastructure projects or other projects supporting this, for example, the construction equipment and so on?
Yeah, I think broadly I said next quarter, that is a quarter starting April, we should be operationalized with our own staff in place and ability to do the first loan. But still we have the staff in place, that is a challenge. So next quarter we should be operationalized and then scale up through the year.
And will it also support the, not directly infrastructure ones, but for example, the construction equipment sector?
Yeah, I would think that our core is to fund the infrastructure sector. And I'm sure in that we will have players here playing a major role. So in a way, it facilitates the activity.
Mr. Kamath, you know, when you talk about these projects that come up, what will be the criteria of selection for the right projects? I mean, there'll be plethora of them, and you know, the whole challenge will be, what do you prioritize? Who do you agree to finance? Is there a framework for that, sir? And how open will be the board to take on innovative ideas, and what are some of the things that you are actually expecting? Green corridor, green energy projects, etc. Are they on the prioritizing list?
Yeah, let's put it in context. For India, everything is a priority, honestly. And there is a pipeline which is very large, in the sense by any global standard. It's a large pipeline, and within that you can cut and parse, and you will get opportunity. You can then prioritize. Do you want to do green? Do you want to do things which will move fast? I think it's something that we need to sit and are these government, are these private? There is no preset in our minds that it should be government, it should be private, it should be in this area or that area. At this point in time, the country, what I believe needs is speed of action in moving those projects which are ready, shovel ready or gone beyond shovel ready, and are an advanced stage of to finance them and get them going. I think that will be our, and within that, if it so happens that these are green, wonderful. Because the general mindset will be green. But I don't think as a nation we can afford to just now say we will do only green.
Sure.
Because you can then question everything. But I would think that everything that is done ultimately in a country like India is going towards a green initiative and a sustainability initiative for the mass.
Okay. Green, sustainable, of course, long-term way of looking at things. And I think if it so happens to be that, it's great, but you will look at a range of things as you go along. Surely, sir, it's too early to, of course, talk on these things. But as you said, there's a huge pipeline already waiting, and the speed at which we need to now function is very, very critical. You said, and you were very optimistic about how we are going to look at the next 25 years and the mapping of it, the digital piece helping us build that roadblock, building blocks to reach. Sir, your own sense and your inputs to this board when it comes to infrastructure. What will we do so differently? And you said that it was an attempt we tried to do earlier, but what is it that we will do differently this time around when it comes to infrastructure funding?
There are two parts to that. One is where do you raise money from? Where do we raise money from? We will raise money from that pool which is now available in the pension and the insurance companies, which typically will be a long-term pool. So I think the first differentiator in terms of what we did earlier and now, we should have an ability to do very long-term lending, 25 years, 30 years lending, which could match, for example, the concession period the government is now talking of for various activities that it does. So basically you are putting in financing which matches the requirement of the customer, which earlier on we were trying to make do, as it were. That is one single thing. Second is, in terms of instruments, a variety of bond instruments could come in, a variety of what I would call off-balance sheet instruments, guarantees and take off on guarantee type of structures would come in, which we are free to do, which a bank may be constrained to do, and we will provide it. These are things that you need to start with talking to the customer understanding the product, the customer feeling the need for the product, and then doing it. But we believe this is where the industry will head.
We've heard the government talk on what they've done, and I think their intention has been very clear through the budget of the capex public spending that they have announced, 35% an upside over the last year. Now the ball is really in the court of the private guys, is what the government seems to suggest. Of course, it's in partnership, etc. But do you think there's more incentives that we need to kind of give? Also the costs of these equipments and, you know, the duty structure and so on and so forth. Do you think any of that tweaking is needed at this stage?
My understanding, looking at the past and what has happened here, is very simple. If you can address the unforeseen risk, you don't need any other, I would say, handholding, because unforeseen risk imposes a huge cost, and that cost is not compensated by any structure that you put in. So unless that risk is mitigated, you will have a problem. So, for example, if you look at that risk in a fossil fuel power plant and that risk in a green power plant, the risks are materially different, because the fossil power plant, you now have to make sure that your coal supply is assured, there is a mining lease, that lease is secure, that you are able to extract, you are able to move it, and so on. That entire segment of risk is removed when you look at a green power plant. So I would think that we need to think through where are risks embedded in a project and how do we de-risk it a priori, so that whoever, government or private sector implementing it, does it seamlessly. Just by example, in the last 10 years, if you look at private sector's experience in road building, the industry here can rate it on a 10-point scale. I'm not going to rate it. By the same token, the government's performance on the 10-point scale, industry could rate it. Yes, in between, I think the first few years, there are a lot of contract-related problems, particularly in this industry. But I would think those are now been addressed. So I would put it as an unforeseen risk which is now addressed. So we need to figure out what are unforeseen risks and address them, rather than think in terms of other incentives. That would be the biggest incentive.
Okay, fair point, sir. Unforeseen risks we need to identify and maybe prepare ourselves for. But you did talk about, or kind of defended banks to say, for them it is going to be tough if we only look at them as a possible source of financing, and we need to adopt, and that's exactly what we are discussing here. But just for the benefit of all of us here, what is the message that you would like to give to the bankers? They have, in many ways, and for right reasons, have become reluctant to lend to this sector, with the mounting NPAs, asset liabilities mismatch, and so on. Sir, but do you think they should step up and do a bit more than what they've been doing? And what confidence should they work with? And coming from you will mean a lot, sir.
Yeah, I would think, I look at the banking sector very positively. What has happened in the last 3 or 4 years, the banks have done a stupendous job in terms of cleaning up their own balance sheets, and they are now, in terms of capital adequacy, very in a healthy position. They are in a very healthy position in terms of their NPAs also today. I would dare say that they are in a healthier position than I've ever seen during my career as a banker. So ground conditions are clear. There's a third thing which is also positive, that is corporate India, which typically used to be geared 22 years back, 3.74:1 debt to equity, came down to 10 years back, maybe 1.718:1. Today is hardly anything to 1. There is no debt on the large corporate books. The smaller is also improving. So the bank's clients are in a much better place today than they were in the past. I would think when you de-risk the investment in the ways that I mentioned, not necessarily by incentivizing, but by addressing those risks which are now clear what hit you, the banks will lend. So the reluctance to lend always is, I would say, is a function of what the banker looks as embedded risk in what he's doing.
Okay, but you think and you believe they should step up?
They will step up. I don't see any hesitancy at all. They will step up where there is opportunity. At the moment, because that risk was a bit high, I think they moved to the retail portfolio because there's also demand there. But if it is, they understand risk is now mitigated, they will move here without any difficulty.
Okay, so they will move as they see the risks getting addressed to a great extent from the retail. I mean, we've seen, of course, from corporate lending to retail lending, and now we are hoping it will be back to corporate lending.
I'll maybe give a follow-up answer to that. See, what will also benefit is the other players that are coming in. We use this phrase either dematerialize or SAS or the service and so on. What happens is a bank, you take at one end of the spectrum, then you come to a leasing company. That is just one step removed from a bank. Nothing much different there, really speaking. They probably know a little more about this business than the bank does. But then you go on to the specialist companies which are in this business. They know a lot more. They know how to manage risk. They know what to do and so on. So as these newer tools come in, the ability to manage some of these unforeseen risks also get better. So I would believe that that is where the future lies, in these businesses coming in and providing complementary support to existing modes of financing.
Fair enough. Of course, that will give more ideas and opportunities.